Hello, welcome to another episode of Becoming a TechnoWizard. Gonna keep it real short this time, for real, for real. Just going to read over my case study. I finally got to a good spot in it. My old one was like 12, 13 minutes long, so I had to shorten it down. So it's like around a 7 minute read now. Didn't really put pictures in it yet, but I feel pretty good about it. So I'm gonna read over it, see if I see anything, and we're just gonna call it call it done after that. So here we go. This is basically a draft. I'm going to use something similar in my end result, but I want my actual end result to be on my website. So each section will be like a page. So I'm going to have a 3D site. I'm going to have a title for the section, such as overview, problem, discovery, all that stuff, and then it's going to be like a card, a holographic card in the middle, and that's going to have very simple, like a picture and about a paragraph or two of text. And then but if you scroll or hit the arrow, it will go to the next section, next paragraph or two, right? So I think that would be a really cool way of doing it. It's still very simple, but it uses it's a very interesting interface. And then I'm going to have like a light switch type of feature or something, or some highlighted areas. And if you hover over the highlight, or if you select the highlight, it will pop out extra details about that my case study. So for those that want to go into more details, because I wrote a lot about this case study, I want to both have that option for my interview as well as for other people that want more details. So yeah. Anyways, here's what I got for this. Have an overview, a one sentence overview. Thinking this either going to be used on the front page or somewhere else, and or I might use a paragraph. I'm not sure which one yet, but I did both. So the one sentence that we created a hub to connect business allies with organizers in Austin's LGBTQI plus community who all feel isolated and disadvantaged due to a lack of resources addressing their specific needs. And then to expand on that, Austin is the third largest LGBTQI plus city, but most of the community feels isolated and ignored because only mainstream LGBTQIA plus causes were supported. We had two primary users with different needs: community organizers and business representatives. We tested four concepts and iterated on a design that combined the best of each. This final concept allowed both end users to post their needs so that they could find each other. The client was so impressed with our work, he resolved to come back to Flatiron. One of our test participants even cried because she loved what she saw so much. During this course of this project, I learned the importance of presenting design decisions over results, when to leave off features that are out of scope, and what it really means to be a team player. Yay. I think that sounds good. So our team, we were a team of 3 UX designers located across the East Coast, working with a client located in Austin. Our instructor only provided feedback and did not make design decisions. We use Figma for remote for collaboration while designing, and Vision for clickable prototypes, Miro for remote workshops with the client, Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides for deliverables and collaboration, Zoom for remote meetings and interviews, and Otter.io for interview transcriptions. For our timeline, we had 3 2-week sprints, each focused on different phases of the design process. We met with the client once per sprint with an additional kickoff meeting during the first week. Uh, talk about the pandemic and the project. So this was a real work project for a client as a final team phase of the Firing School UX Design course. Our client Clayton created QWELLAustin.org as well as Austin Outpost and CityPride.org to strengthen Austin's LGBTQI community. He wanted us to create a hub that connected affirming businesses with organizers to support initiatives for the community, heavily inspired by Unilever's Take Action site. So what is the problem? The problem is that despite Austin being the third largest LGBTQI plus city in America, many people felt isolated from the community. Clayton carried out a survey that showed how most LGBTQIA plus people felt like their needs were unmet or ignored, professionally as well as personally. Through domain research and user interviews, we discovered that 30% of the LGBTQIA plus individuals working at a nonprofit report that they experienced depression as a result of an unwelcoming work environment. Community organizers found it very difficult to get enough support for specialized, meaningful causes beyond parties for white gay men. Business representatives did not know how to influence funding decisions or even get supervisors to care about supporting causes that did not have an obvious impact or relevance to the company. The process. So we did a total of 4 client workshops, 3 rounds of user interviews, and several iterations before we delivered the final solution. During each client meeting, we presented our findings and deliverables to ensure our decisions were aligned with his vision, then did a workshop to extract his ideas and critique. I like all this stuff, but I feel like it's kind of a waste to just read all this, right? I read over it a lot myself. So I think something that's going to be more valuable actually is talking about this as I would in an interview. That's kind of difficult because I haven't really done an interview on this scale before. I'm doing a mock interview tomorrow, or not tomorrow, next week. So that will give me more insight on that. So, but I might as well use this time to like practice, right? So, still want to keep it short. So I'm gonna just fly off the cuff, right? So I think doing the interview, I'm gonna talk about my case study and kind of draw out details that is not going to be really that I'm not going into right on this on the case study, like what's written. I want to make sure I draw attention to all the nuances because I think that's what people are looking for when we get into an interview. So showing like the skills, our deciding decisions, why we made those decisions, where they came from, and so on like that. So yeah. So to go back with the problem, I think yeah, just saying this is pretty clear cut. Only thing I would add was that some other things that we knew about the problem is that when we made problem statements, right? We did a first round of user interviews where we talked to, I think it was eight people in the community. All of them were chosen by Clayton, so we had to stick with those because he felt like all of those were like the stakeholders, or they had a lot of influence. They had a lot of knowledge about this space. So we talked with them and we did the same interview. I mean, we talked to the same people for all 3 rounds of interviews. But in the first round, we came up with a problem statement. And we realized that there were 2 main problem statements, one for each of these end users. So for businesses, they specifically wanted to get um, they needed a better way to get buy-in, to get stakeholder buy-in for giving funds or donations or whatever to causes and initiatives. Because for them, a lot of them worked, and for instance, if they worked all over the place, like in government and corporate or nonprofits, but all of them they were usually leading their affinity boards, like their affinity teams, like the affirming group within that organization. And that group sometimes didn't really have much say in what the business gives donations for. So they needed an easier way to show that, hey, supporting these LGBTQIA plus causes is actually impactful and it's still relevant to the business, even though your business might be focused on like technology or something like that, right? You can give access to technologies to these people. You can give access to computers, to Wi-Fi, or give them, coding classes, or do mentorship programs, or there are a number of things that they can do. Um, but a lot of business representatives found it hard to show that to their supervisors or to their colleagues. And so, that was a major problem. And for community organizers, these were the people that yes, a lot of them worked at businesses as well. Some of them worked in really small business, like below 10 people, but primarily they were the type of people who felt like themselves did not see much um, in the community helping them. Like, for instance, non-binary people, right? They felt like there were not enough causes or initiatives to help those type of people. Same thing as transgender people, or people living with the HIV, or stuff like that. So they felt like their specific problems were not being met, and so um, they decided to organize organize initiatives to try to solve these problems themselves. And they're usually like bootstrapped kind of with their organizations. They would reach out to a lot of different nonprofits or businesses to get sponsorships, or some of them were what's anti-corporate, I think the term was. So they did not want sponsorships from corporations. So they specifically only went to the community, but they were worried that they would be a drain on the community. So, these were major problems with the community organizers. They needed an easier way to find support and to get full support without draining their own community. So they needed a bit of self-sufficiency within the community. So the process. During this process, we started out, of course, basically went through the whole design process. Started out empathizing, defining the problem, and then after that, we did a storyboard to get an idea of what direction we might be going in. We did a workshop with the client called. We used the Scamper method, which allowed us to explore really unique ideas. And from there, we were able to pick 3 divergent ideas that each of our group members focused on. So we made 3 different, different prototypes or concepts, and then we tested those. We did a comparative usability testing, which allowed us to understand, what people liked about each of these concepts, like which one, like we for all 6, I think there's 6 or 7 people, we showed them all 3 concepts back to back. I mean, sheesh, this is loud. We kept it relatively short with each of them. We used scenarios. So we say, hey, accomplish this. See if you can accomplish this with this task. The scenarios differed slightly, but we just wanted to see how effectively they can go through the concept, through the app, and see what problems they had. What were their favorite parts, what were their least favorite parts for each concept, and then for all 3 concepts. And from that, we were able to understand, what they really loved about these concepts, what they didn't like, what they wanted to include, what they thought we were missing, and so on and so forth. From there, we created a sitemap. We tried to do a UI kit as well to make our prototyping a little bit more efficient. Unfortunately, we were really strapped on time because the pandemic was in full swing there, and not everybody was really available. But nonetheless, we did a sitemap for internal use only. It wasn't like a polished sitemap, but it allowed us to really see, what the most important things for us to do were. And then we did I call it a priority matrix. Kind of, it's not an official, Nielsen UX thing. I just kind of had this idea of prioritizing these different, of listing out all the different features from all of our concepts, and then prioritizing them based on what our client wanted to see. So we did that, and then after that, we were able to find all that to find some insights, and then put those insights to build out our actual Converge design. So some of those major insights was that everybody wanted to see a really, really informative homepage. Like they wanted to see everything available to them. And to me, I thought that meant like, putting everything on there, your navigation, your filters, your content, all that stuff. But I was corrected there. So once we actually tested that out, people were like, "Oh, this is really cool." There was like already a lot of really unique features there, but people thought it was too much. It was too busy. It was too cluttered. They didn't know what to do. So from all that feedback, we realized that people wanted to be guided. They wanted to have a more personalized experience. And so from that feedback, our final design ended up being including a onboarding process. So the onboarding process asked them if they were, a business representative, community organizer, or a volunteer, and we gave them filters specific to that group. And then from there, we funneled them into the correct part of the homepage. And the homepage itself was super simplified. It just showed the content, and you had an option to show the filters. And yeah, after that, we just annotated it. And that's the main features right there. Annotated, gave feature recommendations, and we learned a lot from that process. But overall, our client and our participants really loved it. Like one of them actually, our client told us that one of them called them and was crying because she really loved the what we showed her, and that was even before the polished version. So our client really loved it so much. He kept on saying that he would come back to Flatiron to get the UI team, get a UI team to finish it up, and yeah, it was really good. So yeah, I think that's a good thing there, and then from there I would ask questions, see if they have questions for me. I probably might go into a little bit more details with the insights, but again, I don't want this to go on too long. I would rather leave them time for questions. But yeah, that is it. Let me know what you think about my case study, and have a good day.